Isn't it always typical that, it's always when it's coldest, when it's maybe freezing cold or pouring down rain or even pouring down freezing cold rain. It's when you're late, you're in a hurry, when it's so inconvenient. You run out of the house, you jump in the car, it's cold, you put the key in, you turn it. Remember that sound? That's the worst sound, man. That's the sound of, oh no, I'm about to spend a lot of money I don't have, or I'm about to be late for work, or a whole bunch of other things like that. We learn the hard way sometimes when we're younger or when you're older. It takes power to start that car, doesn't it? That's one thing. Or sometimes we try to lift something that we used to be able to lift. And all of a sudden, or maybe really not so all of a sudden, we can't lift it anymore. It's too heavy. I don't know what I'm going to do. Used to could do this when I was younger. Or something happens and you realize the person that used to love you doesn't anymore. The person that used to be your friend changed their mind. Or the boss that used to think you were great decided, we're going to make a change. And you get this pink slip, you get a little certain meeting, and we've all been through things, haven't we? Where we found out all of a sudden we thought we had it all together, or we thought we could do this and do that, and when we found out maybe a painful experience that we can't. We need some help. Yeah, sometimes it's with you just have to recharge the battery. You need to jump start my car, or I had to replace the battery because there's just not enough juice. And it's one thing when there's not enough juice in the car, but what about when there's not enough juice here? Or between you and God? Have you ever found yourself, all of a sudden you just feel like, what happened? I remember once upon a time when me and God, we were just on fire together. I loved him, and there was passion, and there was energy, and there was commitment, and man, I was on fire for God, and the flame now barely flickers at all, or it feels like it's totally gone out. There are times you jump up and you run to go be at church, and there's other times when you just barely, it's all you can do to drag yourself here. And you think, what happened? Do we need help sometimes? Yeah, because here's the fact, we don't want to admit this. We don't like this being true, but there's just sometimes and lots of times with lots of things, you're just not strong enough. Not anymore. Or maybe you never were, and you found out the hard way that now that you're not strong enough. Okay, there I am. Okay. I don't know where I was before. Okay. Anyway, there's a ghost. Maybe sometimes even the sound system sometimes gets weak and it's not strong enough. Needs a little help. But it's all of us in different times, in different ways, to different amounts, different circumstances, are not strong enough. We need more power. We're going to talk about today. We've been talking through the book of Philippians for the last 3 weeks. I want to finish up to talk about some things out of Philippians chapter 4. This short little book has so much, like a stick of dynamite, a small thing with a big impact. And we'll talk about this, that the fact is that Jesus is, for us, he must be, he's got to be the power in your life. Now, sometimes our pride, our ego, our humanity kind of may chafe against this a little bit, or just kind of like, man, because especially I know as us dudes, man, we're like, I want to be the power in my life. And maybe the power in yours. I want to be able to say, look what I can do. Look how strong I am. Look how talented I am. Look how smart I am. Look at what other kind of mental or emotional or physical prowess that I have. And a lot of things we do have power, but sometimes as we get older and our bodies get older or our minds get older, things like that, sometimes the things we used to do, little tasks and things to remember, that slips and we lose some of that. And that's difficult to take, isn't it? As we look in the mirror and this old fella looks back at us and you're going, who in the world? What happened to the young whippersnapper I used to be yesterday? And But I want to challenge you to, to, to renew if necessary, or to commit to the fact to have God as your power supply. Everybody needs the power supply because it takes energy to run a house. It takes electricity to run an appliance or whatever it is. It takes power also to power us. I don't run off of just good intentions. I don't run off of, we know how that works physically. It takes food and water, nutrients and so on, and all the sleep and all the things that takes to recharge and give us power. Well, that just illustrates the even more important, what about spiritually? Because if you learn anything from the Bible, you learn that the spiritual matters even more than the physical. The physical has its place and has its level of importance. We don't ignore that. God's not unaware of that. But the spiritual always matters more. And what's your spiritual supply? Do we think about that? Do we give that attention that it deserves? In Ephesians 3, in the middle of Ephesians, Paul pauses to pray for the church in Ephesus that he's writing to. And he says some beautiful things, some very spiritually deep things that he prays for them for. But in verses 20 and 21, he'll say this to them, and by extension to us, now to him. Now look what he says about him. Who is able to do how much? What is he able to do? Immeasurably more, that's a lot, than what? Than all, there's my favorite word, happens multiple times here in this book. And he says, then all that we ask or imagine. How much can you ask? How much can you imagine? Some of us can imagine pretty well, as big as you can imagine, as awesome and as majestic as you can imagine, the reality of what Jesus can do wipes the floor with that. According to how? His power, not yours. See, there's power involved, but understand that it's not your power. It's his, and look at where it works. Look at where God applies the power. Look at where God, what he puts the power in. He says that is at work within us. To him be the glory, not us. Because when we do great things, it's not great things that we did by our strength so we can go, wow, look at us, look what we did. So he empowers us to do great things so that we can say, look at him, look what he can do. And that he gets the glory. To him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations forever and ever, amen. That's our place. See, look, so always remember where your power is supposed to come from. If some of us just feel drained, we feel exhausted, we feel worn out, we feel I'm just powerless. Maybe we've been plugging into the wrong power source. Maybe we've been trying to run our spiritual life off our own strength or the strength of the world system or some belief or something other than the Lord. That's not. You go to 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. Where Paul tells us, you see, God didn't give us a spirit of timidity, of fear, one version will say, but a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. God doesn't intend us to be wimpy and weak and weaselly and just kind of at the mercy of the world. But there's a power because you see these things personified in Jesus, don't you? As he walked around. Jesus was the epitome of power, love, and self-discipline. He gives us that same ability to be those. So we're going to see in chapter 4 a couple of areas where he's going to administer and give us specific areas to have power, to endure, the power to do great things, the power to glorify God. First of all, he gives the power to settle disputes. Now, do God's people ever have disputes? Yeah, you can chuckle. A rhetorical question. Of course we do, because God's people are people. People fuss. People disagree. People have different opinions and different experiences and different backgrounds and all that. And so sometimes we don't get along. You even had, even though it's such a positive, such a joyful letter, you have the closest thing you have to a big fuss. It's not like 1 Corinthians where it's a riot in 1 Corinthians. All kinds of mess going on there. But the only thing you really had that might be kind of considered almost a negative is you had apparently these two ladies are having some sort of a disagreement. And he says, I urge Yoida, or I urge Syntyche to live in harmony in the Lord. Now, look at the harmony we're supposed to live in. It's not the harmony based on Oprah or Dr. Phil or Ann Landers or Dear Abby or something like that. The world's wisdom has some benefit, some use, but nothing compared to living harmoniously in the Lord. It's a different kind of harmony, different kind of peace. You go to Romans 12, he's going to tell us to be of the same mind towards one another. This is how harmony is possible. Not to be haughty in mind, but to associate with the lowly, not be wise in your own estimation. This is like, look how awesome I am. Never pay back evil for evil to anyone. Respect what is right in the sight of all men, and if possible, as far as it depends on you. See, it's not always possible. But to the extent that it is possible for you, be at peace with everybody. Now, secondly, he's going to tell us in chapter 4, God gives us the power to protect our hearts. Truth is, our hearts need protection. You need to put a fence, as it were. Not literally, of course, but a fence, a protective fence around your heart to guard your heart. Because there is an enemy, because there is a world that we have to navigate through while we're here that seeks to capture your heart, to distract your heart, to pull your heart away from God. It doesn't matter to what. The devil does not care what else you care about as long as it's not Jesus and the things of God. So he'll offer up all kind of a menu of possibilities, and a lot of them are good things. But the problem with the good things is they're things. And he doesn't care how you think, as long as you put it higher than Jesus on your list and in your heart. And he says, we need to do that. So we need to protect our hearts. I think what it says in verse 7, the peace of God which surpasses all comprehension. Look what the peace will do that we have from God. It will guard your heart. We need to have our hearts to be guarded, to be protected, because otherwise they're at great risk from the evil of the world. And your minds too. We need our hearts and our minds both to be guarded. In Proverbs 2, it says, discretion will guard you, understanding will watch over you. But why do we need that? Well, we got to realize, we got to admit this. The heart is more deceitful than all else, according to Jeremiah. And it's desperately sick. Who can understand it? He who trusts in his own heart is a fool. The human capacity to be deceived or even be for self-deception, usually the ones that deceive me, I've been deceived by other people before. But you know who's most guilty of deceiving me in my life? I am. And our capacity to fool ourselves is immense. Okay, I need help with this. I need protection. And I'm really only going to get it in its truest form from God. Another thing we see from chapter 4 in Philippians is God's power to bring peace of mind. The Eagles had that song, I got a peaceful, easy feeling. And if you've never, we know to sing that one of these days, because you can put that song, by the way, to the tune of Amazing Grace. It makes a pretty cool song. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Let's do the first verse. That saved a wretch like me. You're welcome to sing along. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I got a peaceful, easy feeling. I know you won't let me down. 'Cause I'm already standing on solid ground. There's another verse, but we'll move on. In verse 6, he says, don't be anxious for anything. Now, there's a lot of things that are anxiety producing. Try to get us to worry. And worry, have you noticed how worry can really derail the train of your focus on God? Or your spiritual life, if we're not careful. And so I think one of the tactics of Satan is to try to get us all just wound up and so anxious. To me, it's a little bit alarming when you go to a Christian bookstore And see how many books are written for Christians, to Christians, about dealing with worry. Why is that? Because we're told, don't be anxious for anything. Well, dude, have you not know what's going on in my life? Well, look about my finances, looking about my kids, looking about my health, looking about this situation. Are those things real and those things stressful? Oh, yeah, of course. Well, how can this be? Well, but by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known. You pour that out to God because he is the one that can actually do something about it. Even if, sometimes when we do, we pour out to God and we say, fix it. And that's what we do when we pour. It doesn't say bark orders. It says, tell God about it. And he may fix it, but it's his call because he is sovereign. We aren't. But what he may do is give us the help to endure it. He may, because to fix us, to just fix it like that, goes away, which we always think, that'd be best. Maybe it wouldn't. Depends. I'm not God. I don't know. Because maybe there's some growth that can only happen, that growth you need through enduring it. Through having God carry you through and strengthen you in the process of struggling with that, wrestling with that, going through it, even when it is hard and it stays hard. And then on the other side, you can go, wow, I made it. And now I'm stronger than I was. So the things you have learned and received and heard, seen in me, practice these things. And look, the God of peace will be with you. He's a God of peace. Here's what Jesus promises peace. Here's what the world will promise. Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. You'll be popular. Everybody will like you. Everything will go easy. If you just do this, act like this, say these things, drink this stuff, party with us, blah, 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 but here's what they deliver. Some of us know because we have bought the lie and we followed and that's where we ended up. Do any of these look familiar to you? Do any of these kind of like, oh, I know that, I know all about that one. Deal with that one, wrestle with that one. That one has kicked my backside for years now. Yeah. So well, we need the peace that only comes from Jesus. Look what Jesus says. This is him speaking here in John 14. Peace I leave with you, my peace. He is talking about a specific type of peace. The world says, I'll give you peace. Here, bottle full of this. You drink half of this. Oh, and you'll have peace. You'll just not care. Woohoo. You'll care the next day. It's a lie, the world's peace. But Jesus is talking about something else, something better, infinitely better. He said, my peace I leave with you. It's not as the world gives. Don't let your heart be troubled. Don't let it be fearful. And why can I not be afraid? Only because of Jesus' peace. It eliminates fear. Even when things are hard. Doesn't mean everything's going to go your way. He didn't say, I'm going to give you peace by making all your troubles just vanish. Did the troubles vanish for the apostles? After Jesus said this, was the rest of their life just a cakewalk? And everybody liked him? Everybody agreed with them. Everybody did what they wanted. All the lights turned green whenever they drove anywhere. Their cars never broke down. Their friends never changed their mind. When they preached the gospel, everybody said, I'm in. Hardly. And you go to chapter 16, he says, the things I've spoken to you, here's what I've told you. So then in me, he says, not in the world, not in the psychology of the world system, but in me, you may have peace. In the world, you're going to have tribulation. We know. We live it. We deal with it every day. That's what the world gives, tribulation, struggle, difficulty, hardship. But take courage, he says. I've overcome the world. The world's rough on us. So we need a Savior who's stronger than the world. And in Jesus alone, we have that. We see also in this chapter, God's power to bring contentment. Oh man, do we ever live in a world that seeks to manufacture discontent in us? It's how the entire advertising industry works. You look at the ads that tell you, man, you're not cool unless you drive this car. Remember I always think of the commercial that I saw where the kid was being taken to school by the parent, and they always ask, hey, Mom, could you drop me off like a block before school? I was embarrassed by the piece of junk that the mom drove until they got a brand new Hummer. And then she's about to pull over a block from the first time they go to school in the new Hummer, and the kid says, no, you can go on up to the curb now. Now I want my friends to see me get out of this. And one of the implications is you're not a very good parent. You don't really care about your kids. You're embarrassing your children, humiliating them unless you drive one of these. Then your kids will think you're awesome and cool. See, you want to be a good parent? Drive our Hummer. There's a million examples. But true contentment is only possible through our Lord. He says in verses 11, he says, I don't speak from want. Now here's a man that is in jail when he's writing all of this. He's in prison. He says, I have learned to be content. He doesn't say I wasn't always content. Contentment is something that is learned, which means it is possible for all of us to get there. Probably a good bunch of us aren't. Okay, because we live in a world that just tries to keep you content, so you'll buy their thing or do their whatever it is. And I know how to get along with humble means. I know how to live in prosperity in any every circumstance. I have learned the secret of being filled and going hungry, both of having an abundance and of suffering need. So he says contentment is not based on circumstance, as the world would have you believe. It's not based on the numbers in your bank account or how much stuff is in your garage. It's based on something higher, better, and more achievable for us. Even if you don't have anything in your garage, if you don't even have a garage or a bank account. I can do all things through my own awesomeness. Oh, no, it doesn't. Oh, it doesn't say that. Through him. Because why? He's the one that strengthens me. So are you depending on his strength or yours? Are you depending on him to make you content, or the brand name on your clothes, or the approval of friends, or a million other possibilities? Okay. And lastly, we see in this Jesus provides the power to provide for my needs. Jesus has a wealth that is vast beyond our even smallest ability to conceive of it. And he is extravagantly generous to his own. And at the end of the chapter, he'll say, my God will supply some of your needs. No, there's my word again, right? My favorite word in the Bible, A-L-L. How many of your needs is Jesus willing and able and eager to supply? Say it. How many? Yeah. Now, he also does say needs, not greeds, and there is a difference. Now, sometimes I get those confused. Oh, I need that brand new stereo in my truck. I need that, giant set of 37-inch tires on my. Do I really? That'd be nice. That'd be sweet. I don't think I need that. And so he's not going to just go according to my wish list. Jesus is not Santa Claus. He's not an ATM. He's not just a thing where you just, download and here, and it, boink, there it is. He comes in like a rich, benevolent grandpa or uncle. And he's better than that. So he's going to supply our needs. So all my wants, I may not get those. So be it. But he'll take care of our needs. Look what he says in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 6. Don't worry. What are we going to eat? What are we going to drink? What are we going to wear for clothes? This is what the world gets so, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about things? Those are things. Those are important things, necessary things. But they're ultimately things. He says the Gentiles seek after that stuff, all these things. And he says, look, your God knows what you need. When we tell God, I need this, he's not going, oh, really? Oh, I had no idea. God's not going to go, oh, no way. He knows what we need. So he says, here's what you do. Seek first, which means before and above all the stuff of the world. Seek first, because we're seeking multiple things. We got a lot of things we have to pursue and take care of, and we're busy with careers and jobs and family and paying bills and all lots of stuff we're doing. So we've got all these things we seek. Yeah, but he says first. We're talking priority. Here, wallet, here, Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. It's the God stuff. And all these things that he's talked about before, earlier there up the top, they'll be added to you. God will take care of that. And if we just go prioritize correctly, and you'll be amazed what God will do. He'll take care of things you're thinking, I don't know how. I remember my dad saying when he was a young student at the Sunset School of Preaching, came there in 1966 to 1968, had 3 little boys. And I was the youngest of those 3. I would have been only 2-something years old when he started. And I remember hearing them talk, and he was amazed because they don't have a tuition at Sunset, but you have to raise your monthly living support, so you can go to pay bills and rent and all that other while you're there. And he's looking back years later and still shakes his head in amazement and saying, I have no idea how we did it, because for 2 years we had that much support and that much expenses, and we made it. We lived. Kids were fed. We had clothes. We got to sleep indoors. All the necessary, and things were taken care of. I don't know how we did it, because we never had enough. And yet that's God being God. I don't know how he did it either. God is able. That's how God can do what you can't do. He's able to make all grace abound to you. So that always having, look at all the alls here. All grace, so that always having all sufficiency in everything. Look at the terminology, the totality. You may have an abundance for every good deed. Wow, look how expansive that is. So what do we get from this? Just simply this. He's able. Jesus is able, like the song says in the songbook. He is able, more than able. Because his strength is enough when yours isn't. His blood is sufficient to save, to get you to heaven, when your strength is not. Not even close, doesn't even start to be. His provision is adequate, even if ours can't get it done. We don't have to worry about the fact that I'm not and I can't. Don't focus on I'm not and I can't, even though that's true. Focus on he can, he does, he will. So I'm good. So what are we worried about, church? Let him be the power. Have the power of Jesus running. How it'll work and how it'll manifest in each of our lives, don't know. It'll probably be different in different times and ways and levels for each one of us as God works with us individually. But he needs to be the power of this congregation. He needs to be and let him always be the power in you individually as well. And watch what God will do as he powers up our hearts, our relationship with him. And it's going to be an amazing thing. If there are any here that need to respond to the invitation, I'd encourage you to do that, to come make your needs known while together we stand.